My name is Leo, and I'm 18 years old, navigating my first year of university. For reasons beyond my understanding, despite a family lineage hinting at athletic prowess, I never quite fit that mold. My build remained lean, unsuited for the sports my relatives excelled in. Accepting this, I found my niche in the university's coding group, honing skills in the digital realm where physical strength didn't matter. The group offered camaraderie and, crucially, unfettered access to the campus's high-speed internet. Life had taken a sharp turn recently. My father ended his marriage with my mother, Eleanor, quickly found a new partner, and moved out of state. We were left with the house and a dwindling savings account. Mom, necessity forcing her hand, took an administrative job while I focused on my studies. Her recurring advice became a mantra. Focus on education for a secure future, and if you find someone special, cherish her. Love her unconditionally and never abandon her. Unlike your father, I absorbed her words passively at the time, but a recent event brought them sharply into focus. I'd stumbled upon an article online detailing a situation unnervingly similar, a mother offering her son almost identical counsel about love and loyalty. The narrative took an unexpected turn, culminating in them forming a deep, unconventional bond. The accompanying photos, though anonymous, radiated an intense connection that left me pondering. That evening, Mom returned home from her long day. I was sorting through lecture notes in the living room when I heard her key in the lock. As she stepped into the hallway, shedding her coat, I found myself watching her more intently than usual. She wore a simple gray sheath dress, standard office attire, yet on her, it looked elegant. It subtly showcased the results of her dedicated morning yoga sessions, a routine I'd barely registered before. Her auburn hair, usually pinned up, was escaping its loose knot, framing her face softly just above her shoulders. Drawn by an unfamiliar pull, I followed her into the kitchen and offered to make a salad while she started preparing the main course. Helping her chop vegetables, I kept stealing glances, appreciating her profile, the focused line of her brow, the grace in her movements. I'd never looked at her quite like this before. Dinner unfolded uneventfully. We exchanged updates, the frustrations with her demanding boss, the challenges of my calculus course. Afterwards, while I cleared the table and loaded the dishwasher, Mom headed upstairs for a shower. Later, engrossed in my coding project, I heard a distinct creak from the floorboards upstairs. It was probably just the old house settling, I reasoned, despite being sure I'd shut my door earlier. I got up, checked the hallway. Empty. We didn't cross paths again that night. The following morning, the aroma of coffee led me downstairs. Mom was already up, dressed for work, standing by the kitchen window with a steaming mug, watching the drizzle outside. I hesitated, then quietly took a seat at the table across from her. She glanced at me, her gaze quickly shifting to the rain-streaked glass, then returning to meet mine. An unspoken tension filled the space between us, likely stemming from my uncharacteristic staring the night before. I could see she wanted to voice something, but merely took another sip of her coffee. Finally, she sighed, walked to the sink, and poured out the remaining liquid. After rinsing the mug, Eleanor turned, leaning back against the counter. A heavy silence stretched. She swallowed. "Leo," she began, her voice soft, "do you think I still look attractive?" The question caught me completely off guard. "Attractive?" I echoed, my mind racing. What was the right response? Honesty felt perilous, yet essential. "Tell me honestly," she urged, her eyes searching mine. I took a breath. Yes," I stammered slightly. "Yes, Mom, I think you're very attractive." A complex emotion flickered in her expression, perhaps a touch of surprise, mingled with a deeper sadness. She reached for her handbag and umbrella, resting on the counter. "That's nice to hear. Your father hadn't said anything like that in years." He stopped seeing me. She offered a faint, almost wistful smile. "But at least you're not your father," she added, the smile becoming a little warmer. It resonated deeply within me. Of course, I'd seen her smile countless times, but filtered through the lens of the thoughts that had stirred within me, this smile seemed particularly luminous. She left for the office, and I gathered my things for university. I couldn't focus on lectures. I ended up skipping all my afternoon classes, retreating instead to the quiet hum of the university library's computer terminals. The entire day bled away as I fell down a rabbit hole of online forums and anonymous blogs, seeking out more stories of intense bonds between mothers and sons. The sheer volume was astounding. I must have scrolled through dozens, maybe 100 accounts, many accompanied by blurred or cropped images suggesting profound intimacy. It was both fascinating and deeply unsettling. Unfortunately, when I arrived home later, the house felt cold and empty. A note was stuck to the refrigerator with a magnet. Working late. Client dinner unavoidable. Don't wait up. Love, Mom. A wave of unexpected disappointment washed over me. Cursing softly under my breath, I ended up going to bed unusually early. Saturday arrived, gray and overcast. Mom didn't work weekends, dedicating the day to household chores like tackling the endless dust or washing the windows. I didn't have classes either, so helping out was expected. When I came downstairs, the steady drone of the vacuum cleaner filled the air. Mom was already engrossed in cleaning the living room rug, dressed comfortably in old leggings and a faded band t-shirt, her hair piled into a haphazard bun. I carefully navigated around the power cord. Interrupting her cleaning rhythm invited sharp reprimands. As I headed towards the kitchen to make coffee, I paused, watching her through the doorway. Just as she started to turn, I quickly ducked into the kitchen. While the coffee brewed, leaning against the counter, my thoughts drifted back to her. Why hadn't she started dating again? It had been nearly 4 months since Dad left. Surely enough time to consider finding companionship. Yet she showed no inclination. Was she still hurting? Still somehow attached to him? Or perhaps she wasn't actively looking? The ambiguity intrigued me. I didn't hear her switch off the vacuum or enter the kitchen. Her sudden appearance beside me, slumping onto a kitchen chair, made me jump. She looked utterly exhausted, her gaze distant as she stared out the window at the gloomy sky. "Are you okay, Mom?" I asked, a note of genuine concern in my voice. She didn't respond immediately, just sighed and pressed the heels of her palms against her temples. I tried to look away, give her space, but found my eyes drawn back to her tired posture. I'd always seen her as resilient, capable. A spontaneous idea formed. "You look really tense, Mom," I observed gently. "Would a shoulder rub help?" She hesitated for only a second, then gave a small, weary nod. A spark of nervous energy shot through me. It felt like a step forward. Now, I just needed to navigate the next one carefully. "You know, Mom," I said, keeping my voice casual as we walked upstairs, "your whole back seems knotted up." We entered her bedroom. It was neat, ordered, with a faint scent of lavender lingering in the air. The large double bed occupied most of the space. She lay face down on her usual side, leaving the other half empty. I sat beside her on the edge of the mattress. "Hang on," she murmured suddenly, adjusting the pillow under her head. My pulse leaped. Had she sensed my underlying intention? Was this whole thing a mistake? "Okay," she sighed after a moment, seeming to relax slightly. "Go ahead." Relief washed over me, quickly followed by a surge of adrenaline. Never, even in my most private thoughts, had I pictured this actually happening. I must have paused too long because she half turned her head to look back at me. "Are you all right, Leo?" she asked, her voice muffled by the bedding. The sound jolted me. Yeah, sure," I mumbled, forcing my hands to move. She turned back, facing away again. As I began to cautiously knead the tension in her shoulders, she started talking about work. It clearly wasn't fulfilling. She vented about her condescending manager, the incompetence of her colleagues, the feeling of being trapped in a job she disliked but desperately needed for financial stability. My focus drifted. My hand, tracing the muscles along her spine, strayed perhaps lower than intended, brushing against the sensitive curve where her back met her hip. She went rigid instantly, then pushed herself up, pivoting to face me with wide, startled eyes. "Leo, why did you touch me there?" "Mom, The words caught in my throat. What possible explanation could I offer? "Leo, you—" She stopped, unable to finish the sentence, her expression a mixture of shock and confusion. "Mom, don't worry," I said quietly, trying to project calm I didn't feel. "Everything will be fine." "What are you talking about?" Her gaze dropped to where my hand still rested near her hip. "Leo, take your hand away." "I can't, Mom," I whispered, the confession escaping before I could stop it. "Leo, we shouldn't." "You know," I rushed on, needing to fill the charged silence, "I've never really had a proper girlfriend. I've never connected with anyone. But you, Mom, you're beautiful. You're brilliant. You're fascinating. And you understand me better than any girl ever could." "Leo, how dare you say such things to me?" she gasped, though her voice lacked real anger, sounding more bewildered. I didn't pull back. Crucially, she didn't physically push me away. That had to mean something, didn't it? She turned her gaze towards the ceiling, looking completely lost, adrift. I shifted, sitting up straighter, looking down at her fragile state. "Mom," I said softly, "are you all right?" She didn't answer, her eyes still fixed on the plaster above. After a long moment, her gaze shifted, focusing on me as if seeing me clearly for the first time in that context. "Leo," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "we shouldn't have." "I couldn't help myself, Mom," I pleaded softly. "I mean, you're so lovely, and you asked me if I thought you were attractive, and—" The words trailed off, inadequate. "Leo," she interrupted, her voice gaining a measure of strained clarity, "when a woman feels alone, vulnerable, after everything that's happened, and then someone, even her own son, tells her that she's still desirable, attractive despite everything. It plants ideas, confusing ideas. That's what just happened." She shook her head sharply, pulling away completely. "No, I cannot." Without another word, she scrambled off the bed and hurried into the adjoining ensuite bathroom, closing the door firmly behind her. I was left sitting alone on her bed, the echo of the click resonating in the quiet room. I let out a long, slow breath, gathered my discarded shirt, and retreated to my own room. For the remainder of the weekend, Eleanor became a phantom in the house. She manufactured reasons to be elsewhere: an impromptu coffee date with a friend she hadn't mentioned before, an urgent need for extensive grocery shopping, a sudden backlog of work requiring her presence at the empty office on a Sunday. The excuses were transparent. I knew the real reason was an unspoken pact of avoidance, a desperate attempt to prevent any possibility of being alone together, lest the fragile boundary shatter completely. Occasionally, I'd catch her gaze across the dinner table or in the hallway, fleeting looks filled with a confusing mix of fear, regret, and perhaps a silent plea for things to return to normal. A heavy weight of guilt settled in my stomach, but underneath it, a persistent flicker of hope remained. Maybe, I told myself, all she needed was a little time.